Our short film is about a teenage girl and her best friend who catfished a guy that ghosted her.
Me and Alejandra were the ones who really wanted to do a comedy.
In the past, they've had a bunch of horror, so I wanted to like steer away from that and make something different, like different genre.
Another one of like the common things that we always see in other student films is they're typically very heavy and gripping and kind of depressing. And we wanted to make sure that our film wasn't gonna fall into one of those categories.
What concerned me about creating comedy was just if the jokes would land mainly. I was scared that no one was gonna laugh at our jokes and that the crowd was just gonna be silent.
I remember I heard about the topic of catfishing and I thought it would make a funny premise and I thought we could add like a lot of funny jokes in it.
As they're developing it, it doesn't all come together all at once. When the idea came about like, well, what if this guy is actually a narc? I was concerned about, is this too much like 21 Jump Street? But I did think it was really interesting, this idea that these girls try to catfish a boy and in the process are getting catfished themselves. I know that we looked at like Grease, which none of these students had seen Grease. We looked at like Olivia Newton-John's character and kind of how it's kind of like a good girl goes bad kind of story. So that was kind of the original plan with Claire.
We used Alejandra a little bit when making Nikki.
I think y'all used me a lot because it was more like, Alejandra, what would you do? What would you do in this situation? And then they would make me like think about it and then I would say something and they would write it down and then they would put it in the script.
She would come in and she would tell us these stories about this one time she did this or she did that. And I think the group just kind of saw those character traits in her a little bit. But also we looked at movies like The Other Woman with Nicki Minaj, and she was a huge influence, so much so that they decided to name the character Nikki.
He's got a wife, okay? He's married.
And you don't think you can take her?
We love Nicki Minaj.
In some parts of writing the script, it was uncomfortable because there was a specific subject, sexting, and it was difficult for us to write it because we're like inside a school talking about these subjects, and it's just like weird.
The nature of the topics that we were talking about, like they were very like, we're a bunch of kids talking about this with the high school teachers. I feel like it's a little embarrassing.
Although they might not have a problem discussing this with each other, they certainly are not used to talking about it with their teacher in the room. I just had to keep telling them, look, you're gonna have to get over this.
Like after bringing it up, I think it got easier, like to just kind of like try to explain what we wanted to talk about.
We knew that like our grandparents and our parents and our teachers and our principals would be watching this. So we wanted to make sure that it wasn't super uncomfortable when you're watching it.
We talked about it a lot in pre-production about the writing coming out as Disney. So we wanted to steer as far away from that as we could.
We spent a lot of time revising everything.
We even asked like our friends and family to read the script and like, hey, is this like cringy to you? Or like, no, just change this word or this letter or something like that. My favorite joke was the toes, obviously.
The feet was the funniest thing. Like it was so funny, like just bringing it up and like.
It was just such a curveball.
Yeah, it was so odd. Like I feel like no one would have seen that coming because we were like trying to get different pictures and then it's like feet pop up. It's so random.
What the this is better than I expected. This guy is a freak.
Obviously, we weren't gonna actually have him send nudes, so we had to come up with another solution, which toes is like perfect because there's people out there that have foot fetishes. Unless you're actually disgusted by toes like Aubrey is, then you would laugh at the picture of the toes.
Ew, why are they so long? They're like fingers.
So whenever we started writing Nikki, in the back of my mind, I kind of had my friend Aubrey come up a little bit.
As we were developing it, he said, I've got a couple of friends that really remind me of these characters. And I think really even in his head, as we were writing them, he kind of started writing them with these friends in mind because they fit so closely, the characteristics.
They're both very defensive of their friends and they are a little feisty. After talking to Courtney about everything, I kind of thought that she would be good as Claire because her and Claire are both kind of straight-laced. Her and Aubrey have a very similar dynamic to Nikki and Claire.
I relate to my character because she's honestly very much like me. I feel like some of the things she would say is definitely something I would do.
I guess I could say the same almost. Like, I feel like I'm too nice sometimes. I'm like, no.
Finding the house was one of the hardest parts of pre-production because we had a very specific list of like elements that we needed in a house.
In the beginning, we were thinking about using my house, but then it's like, it's harder because there's people actually living in my house. So it's like, oh, we're gonna be here all day. Like, y'all gotta leave.
In total, there were 7 days of actual production going out and shooting, but I think it was over the span of 3 weeks.
Staging the Airbnb was like probably one of my favorite parts of the whole production process, just because I got to be like so creative on how I wanted these two like girls' rooms to look. I wanted to decorate it like how their personality is. I did like a little like mood board of each of the girls. So like I knew like Claire was gonna be like this shy girl, like, oh, she loves to read and like all this stuff. And then like Nikki was gonna be like the like
gangster. Shooting inside the house was a lot more forgiving because we could make it look like any time of day. And because most of the scenes take place at night, that worked a lot in our favor. Also, the air conditioning and water is nice to have.
Don't say that. I have high hopes. Better than last year. So, yeah, because we were in the middle of the woods, and now we have pizza and air conditioning.
So some of the technical challenges on this film were, I think, just the focus on cinematography, and that was one of the things that the students had set out and kind of mandated at the very beginning, was that we want the cinematography to be really good. And what's challenging about that is that it just takes a lot longer.
There were a couple of shots that were kind of hard to do. First was the shot where Courtney's laying down on the bed, and it's right after we cut to her from the hallway. That shot was really hard because we had to get straight up on the bed. So I had to get up on the bed and stand on top of Courtney. And I had to hold the camera, and the camera is so heavy. So I was kind of scared that I was gonna kill Courtney if I dropped the camera, because I would have killed her. So I'm really thankful that I didn't murder Courtney.
The most challenging scene to film was probably the beginning of the film, whenever we were having to get Caesar to walk in the hallway.
There were a lot of moving parts. There were a lot of extras that we had to stage and make them walk in a way that felt realistic. We were moving the camera on a dolly to make it smooth.
What made that so hard was the dolly was so wobbly. So we actually had to get Nautica and Alejandra to sit on it. At one point, me to sit on it to stabilize the camera from.
We were all sitting on it.
We were all sitting on the dolly while I think Luca was operating it.
It was one scene. It took like 2 hours to just try to get somebody walking in.
The timing had to be right, the focus had to be right, like the movement of the camera, whatever, had to be like perfect.
It was pretty fun. It was a fun little ride.
Whoa, guys.
Whoa.
Straightening up. Straightening up.
I think the hardest scene was like the one with the Arby's line, like just trying to perfect that one.
We could not get it right, so we kept having to redo it over and over again.
We had to refilm it so many times because we didn't get like the exact delivery that we wanted.
And then they want to act like we're the problem. They're the ones who want to drive off into the Arby's bathroom, leave you stranded at an Arby's?
Leave you stranded. The Arby's. The Arby's. Or Burger King. That could work.
Leave you stranded when you're in an Arby's?
I actually think one of the most challenging scenes to film was just all of the stuff that took place in Claire's bedroom, in particular because it was a very small space. It was very confined. And so you had a lot of people in there, and just trying to figure out where you can put the camera and making sure that you don't have any of the crew in the shot or things like that, and that the frame is pleasing to the eye even though you're just looking at a wall that's 4 feet away.
That camera was heavy. Like, I don't hear anything from anyone. That camera was heavy, and I had to sit there for 2 minutes, and whenever Mr. Crow took the camera off my shoulder, my arms and hands were shaking after that.
The other thing that I thought was a challenge, and this is the second year in a row that we've done it, is Aubrey getting tackled.
I had to run and then throw myself on a mat, but trying to run and then throw yourself without anybody coming at you was super hard. I think I actually slipped one time, and there was a grass stain on my pants from slipping.
we didn't want to actually tackle her, we didn't want to injure her, or we didn't want to hurt anybody, so like how do you do this safely? So it's actually 2 separate shots where Aubrey kind of throws herself on the ground, and then where the police officer comes diving through the frame, and then they're edited together to look like one shot. But just setting those up and pretending like you're being tackled when you're not actually being tackled is not the easiest thing in the world.
The filming environment, I would say, was really nice. Everybody was so sweet to us, even though I had never met anybody before besides Luke.
It was very new, but it was such a cool experience to see all the behind the scenes, like everything, all that it takes to put a production together, and everyone was really nice. Anytime I messed up and I would get embarrassed, y'all just made me feel so comfortable to keep trying and to keep going.
I would also say it was annoying at times because Luke is one of my best friends, so I think we bickered most of shooting.
You know, we love each other very much, but we do argue sometimes.
I have angered the beast. I'm scared
don't
now.
start with me.
I'm gonna go run and hide and leave.
Go away.
The editing process took about 2 weeks, and this year we did it differently than how we did it last year.
Each of the 4 students on the creative team took a handful of scenes and did a rough cut of those scenes.
We all kind of had our own sections of stuff to edit together for the film, and once we finished that, we all put it together for a first rough draft, and that was, the first rough draft was rough to say the least.
Thoughts?
Very nervous about this film and how it's gonna turn out.
It feels so random. Like, I don't know if it's just me. It feels so like crazy. Like, too much is happening.
There's a lot to fix. There's a lot of issues that we need to take care of. But I'm trying to be optimistic here.
I was pretty discouraged because it wasn't good.
It was kind of like a feeling of like, did we just put all of our time and energy into something that is going to be a complete disaster? And I texted the group that night with a quote from Martin Scorsese. If you don't get physically ill after seeing your first rough cut, something is wrong. I will say though, this year, I definitely questioned whether or not it was going to come together. It was that rough.
I think one of the hardest things was just getting the performances to fit together.
Piecing it all together was really about the small details.
You would just say, this joke is not working. Why isn't it working? And then they would make adjustments, they would reorder things, they would trim things, they would add things, they would use different parts of different takes, and then all of a sudden, okay, that joke's not so bad, that's much better. And so little by little, just scene by scene, shot by shot, they would go through and work through it and just take pass after pass at it until finally, at the end, you know, we stepped back and said, this might be pretty good.
We really did some surgery on it. The rough cut got a BBL,
Yeah.
and we're so happy that it got a BBL.
Yeah.
Hey, Nikki, how's your mom? Is she out of the hospital?
Oh, she's doing great. Her BBL was a huge success. She'll be back from Peru on Thursday.
Awesome. Tell her I said hi.
I was super excited when I found out the film was going to state because it just felt like gratification for how hard and how much energy went into the film. So it was good like that other people noticed what we did.
I was really excited because of the trip. I was really hoping that we'd at least get to state and that we can all come together and just like have something memorable that all of us were like a part of.
Whenever we went to Austin, at that point, I think I had seen the film about 300 times about. So I was looking forward the most to the audience's reaction and seeing if the jokes landed and seeing if people liked it.
When we got there and our film started screening, I was freaking out. I was shaking, I was sweating, like I was going through for those 7 minutes.
The reaction was so good because you could genuinely tell that people were enjoying our film and what we had done.
In the beginning, like one of our biggest fears was people not liking the comedy and not laughing. And whenever people did laugh and were liking the film a lot, it felt relieving, like we had accomplished our task. Every year, we always are told to not get your hopes up, don't expect to win, and we didn't. But I think all deep down, we were like, what if we win?
When they announced our film as the winner, I was genuinely in disbelief. I think I turned and looked at Avery and Luke, and I was like, wait, is that our film? Just because I think we didn't expect to win, really.
Everything went silent, like the world froze for a second. I had to look over to everyone to make sure that everything was real.
More than anything, I was just excited for the students. I was happy for them and that they were getting the recognition that I felt like that they deserved.
Whenever we were on stage and we were walking off, Nautica looked to us and she was like, "It's a good year to be a senior." And I was like, ooh, that hits, because we're seniors. It's our last time.
Yeah.
Kind of sad, but it's a good wrap up, I think.
It feels great to know that we're the first ones here at Deer Park to win the short film for the first time. Like wrapping my head around that's still kind of crazy right now.
There's many ways to measure success, and I would argue that winning an award is probably the least important. Win or lose, award or no award, it wouldn't change the fact that I'm incredibly proud of these students and what they've created and accomplished. With that being said, it is nice to have your work recognized, and I'm glad that the students are getting to experience that. When we started this 6 years ago, the goal was to create the premier high school film program in Texas. If you look around at Deer Park and you see the success from softball, baseball, cheer, choir, theater, art students, CTE groups, the list goes on and on. I'm thankful that we get to continue the tradition of excellence here at Deer Park.
I want to be a part of this because I've always had a passion for making films, and this is probably like my first hands-on experience I'd probably be able to get.
Throughout my life, I've never committed to anything like this, like a sport or like an after-school activity. So I was like, I want to commit to something.
It's been one of my hobbies like since I was little, like making YouTube videos like in junior high, and like from there, like film was always an interest in me. So it was like the last learning experience. I had to like really soak it all up.
Yes, the goal is to learn the filmmaking process and get hands-on real-world experience. But more than that, what this is really about is creative problem solving. It's about communication skills, articulating your ideas effectively, teamwork. And those are skills that all of these students can take with them no matter where they go and no matter what they do.
From this entire experience, it honestly really makes me feel more passionate about my future, and I am proud of the film that we all made.
It feels good making like a body of work that you can go back and look on in the future. This film really is what some of my high school experience was like. So it's nice to have like a little time capsule to be like, yep, that's exactly what it was like. This is it.
I think I'll take away the memories from this experience, because like not only did we get to shoot scenes, we got to spend a lot of time together. Like those days of filming, we all got to be together. We would eat dinner together, laugh, enjoy each other. I think it was just a lot of good memories for my last year of high school.
It was a good core memory.
It's a good core memory.